Well, let's suss that out. We now have a little bit of personal history, how you made your discovery. We now have an image, or at least a vague one, of how you organize your studio. What happens when you put down a piece of paper and start working?
I do just that.
We'll start with that, and then we'll move into segue to an inquiry about the content of this work, because it's not just abstract design. But tell us what goes on when you start.
It literally is just that. I just slap on a piece of paper. I don't know what it is, or I may just like the color. I just may like the image. But it's just a starting point, and it's something to work off of, to work against, to work with. Every building in the paper is like that. Every next move can question or challenge that move, and you just keep going. So it is a random mark.
And when do you start gluing things down?
Right away.
Right away. And can you change your mind, or you just send the wallpaper over?
No, it's built into the way that I can change my mind. That's what I like about it. I think it was lessons from art school and questioning the idea of surface, making surface interesting, and realizing that art really isn't precious. If you get caught up in making the product, you lose touch with the process and the beauty of making art. And for me, it's always been about making things. So the ability to change my mind, to cover things, to destroy what I initially thought was a direction, or wanting to change it up in an interesting way, I can do that with ease with paper. Like a painter, they can make a gesture, an undermarking, they can do an underpainting in a canvas, and they slowly build it up, more so a Renaissance tradition. And they can change their mind, and they can alter it. They can not like it. They can mark up the surface and paint over that and get a more textured surface. They can completely change the painting at any time. And I think that's fascinating. It's wildly fascinating, especially now with X-rays you can see below it. I mean, there's different directions in a lot of views. Some ideas go straight forward with almost ease. It just falls into place. Sometimes that's too comfortable, and I need to switch it up just to make that conflict or that tension in there interesting. And other times, I don't know where it's going or where it's going to be, and there's a struggle, but I keep working until it gets to the level that I'm interested in myself, and I like it.
I have to say, even though there's a lot of imagery in the work, and we're going to turn to a discussion of that in just a couple of seconds, I don't get the feeling that you're teasing out or coaxing forth a final premeditated result. Rather, it feels like these are constructions. You start with a process of building, collaging, collating different images, different textures onto the surface, but ultimately it feels it has a very, I know that some of your background is in architecture, but it has a very architectonic mode about what we finally see as, what we initially see, I should say, as viewers. We see these very cadenced, rhythmically poised compositions that contain a lot of elements. But when you go up and you actually look at what is on that surface and what's beneath, yet still showing through the level that we see that's closest to us, you begin to realize that there's a lot going on here. Talk a little bit, let's talk about this painting since everybody can see it. It's not a painting. In case you didn't know. Talk about what's going on here. I'll begin by saying, if you look carefully, you'll see lots of imagery of guns. You'll see imagery of soldiers shooting guns. You'll see pictures of people lying on the ground, apparently shot dead by a gun. And you'll see a collection of photographs of individual people who, if you read the captions, you realize that these are all victims, fatalities of gunshot wounds. What's going on? What's in your mind?
Whoa. just outside of the specifics of that one, is just their ideas to explore. And when you explore an idea, when you explore anything, an idea, another subject, an object, I think when you really break it down and start to analyze it, the only thing you can do is question it or even test it. And I'm a big supporter of testing ideas and challenging them and questioning them. I don't take anything at face value. I think that's why I'm an artist. You know, I look at it differently. I want to present it differently. I want to give people the opportunity to consider it differently, if anything. And taking an idea or discovering an idea or taking an idea and wanting to explore that, I try to use that same exercise, that intellectual exercise, if you will, and try to render that artistically, through a different material. So putting in all these other images and all these other source materials, although these have a general, and it's always a general topic, so I'm never trying to make a specific statement about one thing. It's always a general idea. I have my opinions, you have your opinions, everyone else has their own opinions. What I try to do is bring enough there to allow people to really consider looking at that very thing that they bring to it a little differently, and see what that opens up or closes for them. It may solidify their idea, it may open it up to anything else, but like this piece, all this imagery that's in all this work, it's not about one thing. Everything in there, it's not what it seems, purposefully, intentfully. And the reason for that being is I want you to question that. I want you to look at it. I want you to go, it's like, well, why are the guns next to the flight of doves? There's a symbol of peace next to a gun that looks like it's pointing right at them. Is that a hunter scenario? You fire the gun and the birds fly away, or is that questioning peace and war? I don't know. Are they shooting at us? Are they protecting us? So the general ideas of that topic, I like to just question, and it just allows consideration for other things. So you put in the random image that I don't even know why it's there, but all of a sudden you're questioning it, going, okay, I've got to keep that there because I don't know. And there's something strong about that juxtaposition of one image next to the other that breaks down the only one way you look at the isolated image when it's next to another, and they either help each other out or they destroy. It's an interesting dialogue that happens.
So I guess you're saying that for both you as the progenitor of these compositions and for us viewers, it's really not about encountering a statement or a manifesto or a position paper, but rather a continuing process of discovery and perpetual mediation between one element of these complicated compositions and another, requiring actually more than just passive looking by the viewer, but actually a kind of process of tentative reading and rereading and rereading these same works.
Yeah, in essence, it's a little bit about research, but it's also about conversation that all these people, you, myself, always can have about the work, or can continue to take something that they see there and have this whole separate conversation. It is a conversation to me personally, and I hope these pieces elicit a conversation, if not about the work, between other people who engage in the subject matter. Which, if you don't want that, talking more specifically, excuse me, about this piece and certain subject matter that goes into it, the fun thing I do is come up with the names. And the names they're not what they seem as well. This has caused senseless games, and it starts to then question right away. Those are little toy army soldiers that, most of us have seen. They're kind of iconic in a way. And then calls into question, things about war, they're child's games, yet they're severe when they're adult games. And there's nothing good ever comes about with someone having a gun, you know. And it plays around with that. It plays around with the seriousness of that. You can make some really strong statements for or against. And you can also lighten the load of that by calling them games.